Welcome back to Pick It. Yesterday we cashed another 3.24 parlay, yet we managed 1 wins and 3 losses with our player picks, resulting in a small profit. Now let's dive into today's action. Our first game is between the Pelicans and Pistons. The last time they met, the Pelicans took the win with a score of 125 points to the Pistons' 116. In terms of averages, the Pistons give up more points in both the season and recent form compared to what the Pelicans managed to score. On the other hand, the Pelicans also concede more points than the Pistons usually manage to score. Looking at the game total, they have a combined average of 216 points per game when facing each other, yet they only managed 241 in their last matchup. Based on the stats, it seems slightly favorable for this game to go over, so we will look into alternate lines. Considering the spread, the Pelicans won with a gap of 9 points last time, but based on the averages, it becomes a 10-point gap, still in favor of the Pelicans. The stats are leaning towards the Pistons to cover, but we would prefer to strengthen this prediction if considering a bet. The Pelicans average 113 points when playing the Pistons, while they managed 125 in their last matchup. The Pelicans are ranked 13th in points, while the Pistons are 26th in points against. Based on the stats, we expect the Pelicans to stay under, as they have an above 80% hit rate across their recent form. However, we would like to consider strengthening this prediction. The Pistons rank 24th in points, while the Pelicans sit at 8th in points against. They average 103 points when facing the Pelicans, but they flew past that last time, managing only 116 points. We also prefer the stats for the Pistons to go over, although it may seem weak when considering recent form and head-to-heads. However, we would only consider a different line. For our first player, we did something a little different. We are making a same player double with CJ McCollum. We are taking him to have over 0.5 first quarter rebounds. As you can see, his hit rate looks solid. He has hit this in 4 of his last 4 games, 6 in his last 7 away games, and 4 in his last 4 when facing the Pistons. We paired this up with him to have over 0.5 first quarter assists. He has hit this in 4 of his last 5 games, 11 in his last 13 away games, and 4 in his last 4 when facing the Pistons. Next up, we have the Sixers and Clippers game. The last game between the two, the Sixers stole the win with a score of 120 points to the Clippers' 110. In terms of averages, lately, the Sixers are scoring less points than the Clippers allow, while the Clippers are scoring more than the Sixers allow. Looking at the game total, both teams have a combined average of 221 points when facing each other, but they surpassed this in their last matchup. Based on the stats, we favor this game to go over the game total, as they have done so in majority of matchups, and in 65% of the season. However, it becomes weaker when considering recent form, yet it's still positive. Considering the spread, last time there was a 10-point gap separating the two, in favor of the Sixers. The Sixers have covered in every single matchup, while they are also covering in all but one of their recent games. With injuries affecting this game, we would look to see if an alternate line could be worth a shot. The Sixers have an average of 115 points per game when facing the Clippers, but they hit 120 in their last matchup. They are also ranked 15th in points, while the Clippers are ranked 10th in points against. The stats seem to prefer the Sixers hitting over today's line, but we would suggest searching for a different line. The Clippers are ranked 13th in points, while the Sixers sit in the 9th position for points against. They average just below 106 points per game when facing the Kings, but they hit 110 in their last matchup. We are expecting them to stay under their line, as the stats look stronger for this one. They have managed to do so in all but one of their matchups. Now let's talk about the Cavaliers and Heat match. In their last matchup, Heat managed to win with a score of 107 points to the Cavs' 104. Looking at the averages, neither have not been scoring many points lately, while both teams concede more points than they managed to score. In terms of the game total, they scored 211 points in their last match, while they averaged 210 points when facing each other. The cover rates for the season look stronger for hitting over, but recent form is not as favorable. It might be worth considering alternative lines for this game. Considering the spread, Heat won with a 3-point gap in their last matchup. Based on the averages, it was right on the dot for point difference. We are not too confident about either outcome in this game, as the stats are favoring the Cavs to cover. Yet recent form is weak on both sides. The Cavaliers average 106 points per game against Heat, but they managed to score 104 points in their last matchup. They are ranked 20th in points, while Heat are 4th in points against. The stats suggest that they are highly likely to go over when considering past matchups and this season's games. They manage an about 80% cover rate across the board. Heat are ranked 27th in points, while the Cavs sit at 5th in points against. They average 103 points when facing the Cavs. The stats for this matchup are quite even, but we would slightly favor them going over, although we would need to adjust the line. Our player pick is Jimmy Butler to have over 4.5 first quarter points. He has hit this in 5 of his last 6 games, 4 in his last 5 away games, and 7 in his last 7 against the Cavs. We also like Darius Garland to stay under 20.5 points, covering in 4 of his last 4 games and 4 in 5 when facing Miami. It also helps knowing that the Heat are ranked 4th in points against. Now let's talk about the Warriors and Wolves game. In their last matchup, Wolves secured a win with a score of 104 points to the Warriors' 101. Looking at the averages, Warriors clearly like to score more than what the Wolves allow. Additionally, the Wolves manage just below the amount the Warriors allow. In terms of the game total, they scored a total of 205 points in their last matchup, but based on the averages, they typically score 226 points per game. Based on the stats and considering their they have a slight better cover rate, I would lean towards the game going over, exceeding the expected point total. The spread in the last game was a 3-point gap in favor of the Wolves, but when comparing the averages, both teams are identical. I would only consider different lines with this one. When facing the Wolves, the Warriors manages to score an average of 112 points per game. They are ranked 7th in points, while the Wolves are ranked 1st in points against. Given their stats, I would favor the Warriors going over their line, as they have achieved 80% of the time across the board. On the other hand, the Wolves average also 112 points per game when playing against the Warriors. They are ranked 18th in points, while the Warriors are ranked 19th in points against. We also prefer the Wolves hitting over today's line, as they have managed to do so majority of the time. Now let's analyze the Thunder and Bucks game. In their last matchup, the Bucks came out on top with a score of 136 points to the Thunder's 132. Looking at the averages, the Bucks have managed to score more points than what the Thunder typically concede in recent form. However, for the recent form, it's a much closer comparison. On the other hand, the Thunder score more than what the Bucks usually give up. In terms of the game total, they scored a total of 268 points in their last matchup, but based on the averages, they typically score 227 points when playing against each other. Based on the stats, we slightly lean towards the game hitting over the expected point total. However, we are not confident in this choice, and the line would need to be altered to even consider a bet. In the previous game, the Bucks secured a win with a margin of 4 points. However, when looking at the averages, the Bucks have a lead of 13 points. Again, we would favor the Bucks with this line. However, when considering alternative lines, our opinion could easily change. Thunder manage just 117 points per game against the Bucks, and they rank 3rd in points scored compared to the Bucks' 22nd position in points against. When considering the stats, it favors them hitting over the expected point total. On the other hand, the Bucks are ranked 4th in points scored, while Thunder sit at 13th in points against. The Bucks have an average of 120 points against Thunder. We also slightly favor them going over their line, but it would have to be a different line to consider a bet. We went with Malik Beasley to have over 4.5 rebounds and assists. He has managed this in all of his last 6 games, 3 in his last 4 against OKC, and in all 4 of his last away games. Now let's analyze the Pacers and Lakers game. In their last matchup, the Lakers came out on top with a score of 123 points to the Pacers' 109. Looking at the averages, both teams seem to give up around the same points that they usually manage to score. This holds true for both the season and recent form. In terms of the game total, they scored a total of 232 points in their last matchup. However, when facing each other, they have an average of 228 points. Based on the stats, it looks solid for the game to stay under the expected point total, especially when considering recent form and head-to-head matchups. In the previous game, the Lakers had a 12-point lead over the Pacers. However, when comparing their averages, the gap is only 3 points. The stats slightly favor the Pacers when looking at them, and the strongest stat is the recent form covering the spread. It might be better to look at different lines or skip this line entirely. The Pacers average 113 points against the Lakers, and they are ranked 1st in points scored. On the other hand, The Lakers are ranked 23rd in points against. When looking at these stats, it appears to be all over the place. For the game to stay under its hit in all matchups, yet they hit over 80% of their recent form. The Lakers are ranked 10th in points scored, while the Pacers sit at 27th in points against. The Lakers have an average of 115 points per game when playing against the Pacers. We prefer the under stats for the Lakers, as this outcome dominates the over outcome. Yet it's nothing to be confident about. Alternate lines are key with this game. Our final pick is Miles Turner to have over 7.5 rebounds and assists. He has hit this in 4 of his last 5 games, 3 of his last 4 away games, and 4-4 against the Lakers. Thank you for tuning in to my NBA picks and analysis video. I hope you found the information and insights valuable as you make your own predictions for the upcoming games. Remember, the NBA is full of surprises, so always stay on top of the latest news and updates. Whether you agree or disagree with my picks, I encourage you to share your thoughts and predictions in the comments below. Wishing you all the best of luck with your NBA picks, and I'll see you in the next video.